What is going on, guys? And welcome back to another value packed episode of Rapflex Radio. I'm your host, Kyle Rapp, as always, and I am sufficiently warmed up today. I just got done teaching the first module of my podcast design course. I have been in the back end and the front end now for a few months of doing podcasts, and I want to impart my expertise and knowledge of podcasts to online coaches so they can monetize their attention ethically. And I believe a podcast is a great way of doing that. So, just a side note, if you guys are an online coach, you're interested in starting a podcast like this, email me at kyle@rapflex.com. The official launch will happen in a few months, but this is the creation process, and I've got a few beta clients and pre-launch price clients in it. So, before we start into today's topic, which is all about principles and bright lines, I want to remind you guys that this episode is brought to you by my own mini course, which is free. The Flex Philosophy course, covering focus, learning, enthusiasm, and execution. Four values I believe every athlete and every entrepreneur must have in order to sustain elite level of performance and success in their life. And that's so true right now, especially with what we're all going through with the COVID-19 pandemic. I never want to be on here and be completely deaf to the situation that we are all currently in. And I have very little words that I didn't share on last week's episode. If you did not listen to that, feel free to listen to me. I cover, the reality of the situation, the struggles that I have gone through and that we're all going through, and the opportunity within what we're experiencing. But I think today's episode and the topic matter is going to help not only you as an athlete and as an entrepreneur, but in your life. It's going to help you make better decisions and trust them more confidently, especially now when, yes, we may be afforded a little more time, and what you decide to do with that time, whether you're going to relax more or you're going to dive even deeper into your sport or your craft or your business. So that's all based on what you decide, but that's really developing principles and bright lines within your life. And that's what I'm going to cover today. So, what are principles and bright lines? So, principles and bright lines to me, within my own life and within the context of what I teach, it's beliefs that we are either currently trying to establish in our lives or ones that we already have that are serving us very well. And I will give you 14 examples of my own life and how those are either implemented now or I set these probably about a year ago, as of to like around a year ago. And some I have reached, and some I haven't yet, but I'm working towards them and have made improvements upon them. And when you set principles in your life and you tell yourself that, I'm going to act in a certain way, regardless of, emotions or other people's opinions or fear or any sort of opportunity cost, negative ramifications. If you decide that you're going to act in accordance with the person you decide to become, a lot of things are going to enter into your life. You're going to be able to make better decisions because you no longer have to contemplate whether it is a good idea or a bad idea. You are performing based on what you believe is to be true. We have this concept in the personal development world, professional development world, called attention fatigue. And if you think about it, we really are only given so many points to start the day, and we could have less points if we don't sleep as well as we normally would, or any other psychological or physiological complications with that. But we are given so many attention points when we start our day. And the more that we either contemplate or weigh pros and cons, or go back and forth as to whether to decide to do or not to do something, we are taking away valuable, precious attention points away from executing daily on the life that we truly want. So when you create these principles and bright lines, you're going to be able to have more attention points, A, in reserve, and B, you're going to be able to act more, accordingly to what you have set out to do, and you'll have much more focus and attention on those things. And you will stop acting out as much on impulse and emotion. And this is one of the biggest things that I've seen, especially either in the heat of competition, or if you're having a bad day business-wise, your communication with other people, acting out of impulse and emotion typically 90% of the time is going to have negative ramifications. And that's the last thing I want to do, is to have you half cocked and you telling someone to go fuck themselves on text message, or get a red card or get tossed out of a game because you acted out of impulse and emotion rather than your principles and bright lines. And I'm not saying that we're perfect. We're by no means designed to be perfect or any of that sort. But if we continuously establish and remind ourselves of our principles and bright lines, we have a much better chance at sticking at them consistently. And lastly, you're going to stop second guessing yourself. Before I established either my bright lines, my affirmations, and my principles, an example would be like a couple years ago, I would constantly second guess what if I was doing the right thing. And it's a terrible feeling. And not only are you putting that uncertainty into your brain, you're also taking away attention points, and that's just so many more thoughts than if you establish these and you act upon them. And I'm not saying this is a perfect system, but it has absolutely allowed me to get more things done and establish better relationships with people who are like-minded. And it's allowed me to get a lot more done when I'm not constantly second guessing myself if this is the way that I should be living my life, or the way that business should be run, because A, I set a vision for the company, and B, I am going after this with my principles and bright lines within mind every day intact. So most people act off of emotion, and you've probably seen this in your daily life. I can't tell you the last time that I went all half-cocked and said something I regret, but there's been, especially when it comes to like intimate personal relationships, if you feel hurt, you had expectations of someone in your life and they didn't live up to it, it can be very easy to act off of emotions. And I'm not saying that emotions are bad. That's not my point. I'm looking at this from a lens of a focus, a productivity, and an execution standpoint. Emotions typically aren't rational. They take us away from what is actually true and the reality of the situation. And if we can't see the reality of the situation, if we're blinded by emotions, it's going to be very hard to make decisions that are going to constantly progress ourselves and to truly evolve as a human being. And acting off of emotion is a lot of comfort. And comfort is our habitual backseat. We take a when shit's hitting the fan, when this COVID-19 first started, I don't know about you, but I started to fall into a lot of my bad habits. And when we have that level of uncertainty, and when we have fear of the unknown, which is really the loss of the known for us, being able to go and do whatever we wanted, comfort kind of takes back over to level that out. And emotions, and getting back to what I was saying earlier about how they're not rational, like that's comfort's not going to allow us to evolve, especially in dark and uncertain times. Really, we are, from a logical standpoint, we are spending calories inefficiently. And our brain runs off calories, our entire body runs off of calories, and if we're putting, say, calories are money, you're investing into these emotions that aren't rational instead of your principles and your bright lines, you're not going to yield that return on that investment if you would put it into the principles and bright lines that you create. So most people act off of emotion, and the goal of setting principles is to start acting like the person you want to become and not the person you currently are now. And I believe this is a gateway to growth. And similarly, bright lines and principles is your vision, but these are specific one-sentence statements that are specific to either a life category or just overall in general. And I didn't start doing this again. I established these probably about a year ago, and I've been working towards being the man and the individual that I want to become based off of these bright lines and principles. But before, I just didn't feel I knew myself, and it's very hard to progress as a human being when you don't know yourself. And a lot of that comes to awareness and having self-awareness. And oddly enough, when I talk about self-awareness and creating a vision and then habits, routines, peak performance, these are all things that I coach people one-on-one and within the mental conditioning hierarchy course. So if this is something you're interested in, kind of a mid-ad roll here, if you want to take your bright lines and principles and you want someone to coach you through this entire process, and you want to become more self-aware, you want to set a vision, fill out the application. You'll see it in the show notes. And I believe this is the fastest way that you're going to be able to create and implement these bright lines and principles in your life, because I cover this in the vision part of my one-on-one coaching. But back to the podcast. So my experience, again, I just felt like I didn't know myself. I didn't know what direction I was going, and I didn't know really how to act either in public or by myself, because I didn't set a direction and a work ethic and all those. And when I set them now, like I know what to do now. And it's very clear how I should act in certain situations. And am I always perfect? Absolutely not. But I have been able to restrain the actions that come with irrational emotions a lot more and stay a lot more focused now that I have created these bright lines and principles and have worked to improve and progress in them all. So, the steps for you. Steps to setting principles and bright lines in your life. What do you want in life? And this is what I was talking about earlier with setting a vision. Who has done that thing in the past? What did they believe? And what did they represent? and then start to adopt those principles in your own way. Now, you can take words that they use. I'll give you examples of one that I plucked straight out of books or individuals. But it's going to be better if it comes from you and your language and the way you speak, because you're basically going to be reading these to yourself. So it has to resonate with you to be effective. And my principles, to give you guys a few examples. One is either working or working out Monday through Saturday. Makes every set and rep count in the gym. Feels fear, acknowledges it, and moves forward. Executes his fuel plan to the maximum to grow and develop. Is an exceptional linchpin who over delivers in value. That is straight from Seth Godin's linchpin. Believes money equals value and goes after it every day. Works to be remarkable, amazing, and spectacular. Also from linchpin. Will build a massive amount of wealth for me and my family. Beats resistance and does new and difficult shit every day. Can acquire any new skill quick and in any area. Those kind of sound the same, but they're really not. It really helps me to differentiate those. Exerts emotional labor, makes maps, and innovates. I'll explain a little bit what that is later. Deserves loves from an equally awesome woman. Is a straight cleaner, instinctive and relentless. That is straight from the book Relentless by Tim Grover. Is hyper-realistic, open-minded, transparent, and genuine. That is from Principles by Ray Dalio. So what this allows me to do when I look at it every day is remind myself of the person I am trying to become, the person I am working towards becoming. Some of these, I wouldn't say I'm 100% at any of these. I continue to work, and some of these, you're never going to reach quote unquote the end. You're always gonna be able to improve a little bit. But the one I'm most proud of, I believe, is number 3, is feels fear, acknowledges it, moves forward. Launching this podcast, there was a lot of fear behind it. Me talking on video, it's comfortable, quote unquote, now, but I'm just talking to a camera when, I've now changed to I'm talking to my ideal client, an athlete or an entrepreneur who needs to hear this. As an exceptional linchpin who over delivers on value, that is something I take to heart. Whoever I work with, either in a coaching or a consulting, freelance capacity, I'm always looking to over deliver on the value that I create. I'm also working on my money mindset, believes money equals value and goes after it every day. That's something I still need to improve upon. But I'm working towards that with ramping up the content creation and getting on Instagram more and really talking about what I do. Because I just had this revelation last week that I hopped on my Instagram story yesterday to talk about what I actually do, because I just had a podcast launch. And when I got done with it, I said, wow, I don't talk about this in public out loud to anyone, like barely even on here. I'll pitch the one-on-one, or I'll pitch the Flex Philosophy course, but I don't talk about it enough for it to sink in the way that human beings actually respond to marketing messaging. Beats resistance and does new and difficult shit every day. That is something that I absolutely do and can acquire any new skill quick in an area. I do believe that, and I work off of that belief, and it's kind of crazy like how many things that I can actually do from either a online marketing sense or with my body, with my mind. And that was just, it was creating that bright line for me in that affirmation. Exerts emotional labor, makes maps and innovates. Makes maps means I'm going to plan things, to strategically set out new goals. I'm going to constantly innovate. The first couple episodes was just video, and now I have Prezi video to do these original content so I can share with you on YouTube what these PDFs look like, so we can enhance your experience. That is what I'm all about. I'm all about the user experience and how can I help you reach the goals that you want. And this is emotional labor, getting on here, being vulnerable, talking about this. Like, that's emotional labor. That's being a true artist, and that is something that I learned from Seth, and something that I implement in my life every single day. And I'm working to become a straight cleaner, instinctive and relentless. I don't think there's ever a ceiling to that, but it's always a good reminder of, hey, who you're trying to become. And that's what setting principles and bright lines allows you to do. And once you set those, and once you start working towards being that person, you're going to attract the people in your life that A, respect and honor those, and B, that go after the same things. And you'll be able to have a better support network based on the principles and how you live your life. So to wrap up, start to live your life by principles and really sit down and if it's creating a vision, if it is even being honest with yourself of like how you act now and why you regret it and why you want to change, and then start to think about like what are one line sentences that I can start to write down and remember and start to live by to have better relationships, love myself more, make more money. Like, this is going to help you in every single area of your life, but you have to be dedicated and intentional with creating these and looking at them, which is why I have mine printed off right here and is usually above where you see behind me if you're on YouTube. So yeah, that's what I have for you today. My take home is to really think about, like, feel free to steal, I guess, what I have written down and create your own, because that's going to be the most impactful for you. Start to really think about your life from a principle and bright line standpoint, instead of feeling uncertain and second guessing yourself, because I know how painful that is as someone who's experienced that before. So until next time, guys, I hope you have a great week, and thank you for listening, and we will talk soon.